The Wilderness Within You, Day 37, the Thursday of Week 6. One longer reading today from the Bible, Luke 7, verses 36 to 44, and I'm reading from the New International Version. When one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him, he went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town, who lived a sinful life, learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house, so she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. As she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this, he said to him, "If this man were a prophet, he would know who is touching him and what kind of woman she is, that she is a sinner." Jesus answered him, "Simon, I have something to tell you." "Tell me, teacher," he said. Two people owed money to a certain moneylender. One owed him 500 denarii and the other 50. Neither of them had the money to pay him back, so he forgave the debts of both. Now, which of them will love him more? Simon replied, "I suppose the one who had the bigger debt forgiven." "You've judged correctly," Jesus said. Then he turned towards the woman and said to Simon, "Do you see this woman? You can believe this or not. I am invisible. This is no idle claim. I should have been a spy. I can pass within a foot of someone I've known since forever, and they will not notice me. I can stand inside a shop alongside a friend of 20 years' acquaintance, and they will not see me. Even members of my own family, searching for me in a crowd, look straight at me and do not see me. I am uncommonly forgettable. I have nothing about me to draw your attention or fix me in your mind. This doesn't upset me. It's very convenient and a handy attribute for a writer. People will say all kinds of things in my presence they might have more cautiously kept to themselves if they'd registered I was there. I am the definitive nobody. I think more people might be invisible if they weren't recognised by their identifying label, like those grand social occasions where the arriving guests give their card to the butler and he announces the Duchess of Cornwall, or the Akond of Swat, or whoever it is. Knowing what people are can easily be confused for knowing who they are. "Oh, yes, I know him. He's the butcher. Sure, I know her. She's the receptionist from the surgery." One of my all-time favourite stories from the Gospels is that one where Jesus goes to dinner with Simon. A story of who and what. Simon may or may not know Jesus personally. I suspect that he wants Jesus at his dinner party because by this time Jesus has become a personality, a public figure, the preacher from Galilee. Simon himself has the odd distinction of two identifying features from opposite ends of the spectrum. The Pharisee, respected religious elite, and the leper, social outcast. I make a mental note to ask Jesus, Was this man one of those you healed? And when the uninvited woman gate-crashes the party and begins her uninhibited adoration, I don't know what the leper thinks, but the Pharisee is appalled. If you were a prophet, he thinks as he looks at the scene, you would know this woman is a sinner. Categories writ large. And what I love is the way Jesus completely ignores every single category in the question. Simon, do you see this woman? He sees the person, not the label. As this day comes to a close, I think back on the time I spent with Jesus as we wandered together through the concrete wilderness of our shopping centre with its chain stores and cheap mass-produced garments and gadgets. We were people watching, and I loved hearing his comments. He saw that the child in the stroller was crying because her fingers were cold, that the old lady in the bus queue was looking longingly at the occupied seats in the shelter, her feet swollen and tired. He heard the defeat and defensiveness in the voice of the young man arguing with his girlfriend. He noticed the cheerful expression on the face of the man who sweeps up the rubbish in the shopping mall. He didn't have to be told what they were to understand who they were. Something I notice about Jesus is that he is not frightened by anger or repulsed by aggression and swagger. He is not vulnerable to manipulation or flattery. He looks and he really sees the motivation, the intention, and sometimes the underlying reality that even the person he's looking at cannot find, because it is too deeply buried under layers of accumulated life. Jesus, I say, closing my eyes, remembering, holding his presence in my heart as though he is still really there. Teach me to see as you see. Teach me to see beyond the facades and the status, beyond my own prejudice and in spite of my assumptions. Teach me to see like you. The darkness is folded all around me, and I am alone here in my bedroom. Even so, I know his voice in my heart. I could never mistake it. I will teach you, he says.